Starting with the United Arab Emirates has contradicted claims by the Nigerian government that it is yet to lift a year-long visa ban on Nigerian travelers. An official from the Gulf states told CNN that there are no changes on the Nigeria-UAE travel so far. The source asked not to be named because he is not authorized to speak to the media. The UAE said in a notice last October that it will no longer issue visas to citizens from Nigeria and 19 other African nations. It did not provide further details, and obtaining a 30-day tourist visa was relatively easy until the UAE abruptly stopped issuing the visas to Nigerian nationals. Flights between both countries were stopped last year after Dubai's Emirates Airlines suspended its operations in Nigeria, citing trapped revenues. The carrier said it could not access and repatriate its funds amounting to $85 million withheld in Nigeria. First off, I want to say welcome back. You were surely missed. But I mean, we're not in Dubai, so this did not affect you. But we have to talk about this. You know, just this week, you know, the president had, you know, gone to India for the, G20 summit, and on his way back, he made an unscheduled stop at the UAE. And what we got from that was that there was a meeting between our president and and their president as well. And the outcome of that meeting was the immediate lifting of the visa ban, according to our president. Let me be very clear about that. The presidential spokesman, who is representing our president, said the immediate lifting of visa ban on Nigeria, the resumption of Etihad and Emirate Nigeria routes, the $1 billion UAE investment in Nigeria, and joint FX liquidity program with details to follow. But here we are, hearing from an unofficial source. I'm sure by Monday everything is going to be clear. But an official source, and of course going to CNN, which is a very reputable news organization, saying no. And I myself, as an avid traveler, as soon as I heard the news, I remember going on their website to see if an announcement or some kind of briefing had been made. And up until this morning, there was nothing like that. So to be hearing this from a source inside or, from the Gulf country is quite alarming, because on social media, we could see, people jubilating, travel agencies happy that, we could start going to Dubai. But this, who is not saying the truth here? Is it a situation where the president maybe did not understand what the objectives of that meeting was, or what will I say, the agreement from that meeting was, or was it a situation where we were in a rush to announce it? What exactly has happened? And what is very interesting is, if you are owing this country $85 million, what exactly is being done to make sure that their trapped funds, they get their trapped funds back? Because why, if someone was owing you that kind of money, why would you start business with them without any kind of maybe MOU or some kind of payments plan? So it's scary, because we know that the president has done a few deals. Even when he was in India, he boasted of having signing some MOUs. There are going to be investments. It's going to be a $14 billion investment. We haven't seen it in pen and paper.
Every president does that. I mean, each time they travel, the news has to look good. This is not to reduce the import of what the president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is doing. But this is what you will get. I mean, Buhari did the same thing, Jonathan, Obasanjo. Once you travel, the news has to look good. But specifically on the SAR relationship with the UAE, I think you hit the nail on the head. First, we have to admit that this is not an official statement, from the government of the UAE or the Emirate of Dubai. But of course, if a CNN is saying that, an authoritative source who does not want to be named is saying categorically that no such agreement has been reached, or was reached at the meeting, then that carries a lot of weight. More so that we could see that in barely 48 hours or 72 hours after the return from Dubai, during Galale, the presidential spokesperson had to basically issue two different statements, almost contradicting himself about what he said, in the beginning. And just like you did, when you checked, if what Ajuri reported is actually what is going on in the Dubai media or the UAE media, you see that the report that many people got online, particularly from Gulf-based media houses, is not in sync with the enthusiasm, or their report didn't carry the sort of enthusiasm that our own report from the presidential spokesperson carried. What could have happened? I don't think the fault will be that of Ajuri alone, even though as a presidential spokesperson, there's no way you can absolve him of a fault, if indeed there is one. What has happened is that one, I think it stems from the kind of unscheduled visit that the president decided to embark on. I would have thought that what would have been necessary would be to have a proper state visit, to the UAE, in which case we will have seen our president, and the prime minister of the UAE, standing side by side, granting interviews and saying that these are the points that they agreed on. But that's not what we got. So we can understand that, it wasn't a state visit. But hey, where are we on Nigerians returning to Dubai if they choose and getting visas and flights resuming? It's obvious from what is happening that those agreements are yet to be finalized, even if they were raised at the meeting. And I believe that they will have been raised, but it doesn't look like they've been finalized on, because the points are clear.
Yes.
Let's deal with the issues. $85 million that are not being remitted. In any case, the visa denial is not just affecting Nigerians, it's also affecting about 16 other African countries. So will they leave that for Nigerians alone and leave all the other 16, 15 African countries? Those are the things that we have to deal with. And this is also a lesson to people who speak on behalf of government, not to rush out with news that that in 24 hours it might be denied or it might be changed. But hey, Ajuri is learning, isn't he? All right, we'll proceed. The Libyan Red Crescent says the number of people who have died in flooding in the city of Derna has risen to 11,000. Aid agencies are warning of an impending health crisis with waterborne diseases becoming an increasing threat. Emergency teams in Derna are intensifying their search for bodies. Floodwater washed many people out of the sea or buried them under mud and debris. There are fears that the death toll could rise to as many as 20,000. The World Health Organization has called the situation unprecedented. The UN says Libya's political instability is partly to blame for the catastrophe. The country has two rival administrations. The country's ambassador is appealing for more international aid. The UN has released $10 million to Libya for relief efforts.
The numbers are changing as we speak. I mean, the numbers are thousands. I mean, so far as we got confirmed bodies reached 6,000. But the missing, because the area that was hit had a population of 30,000 in terms of that area where it's direct hit. The whole city could be more than 100,000, 100 plus citizens, there. But the direct hit came to an area where it's around 30,000. And as we speak now, many of those are either being in a rescue effort or missing because they were hit badly and when that happened. So I cannot really confirm the final numbers, but it's really a high level of magnitude, and I'm afraid we will hear really large numbers, maybe even more than what has been confirmed so far. We need the support of the international community. We need the support of the UN agencies in order to be able to manage this crisis in a proper way and to help Libyans overcome this unfortunate incident. We want to take advantage of the high-level week in order to gain or get this support. All efforts are put now for rescue teams to try to be able to manage this disaster, but it's really challenging. We were not used to this incident. We were not expecting it that way. Therefore, I've been trying to engage in coordination with the UN agencies and different entities to coordinate efforts.
Meanwhile, Morocco's government has announced an aid program to those left homeless after last week's earthquake. The plan includes 50,000 housing units for the victims. The government will provide more than $13,000 for the reconstruction of homes which have been completely destroyed and $8,000 for those with partial damage. Residents will meanwhile be given temporary shelters equipped to withstand cold weather. The exact number of people left homeless is still not known. Nearly 3,000 people have been confirmed dead and more than 5,000 injured after last Friday's 6.8 magnitude quake. I mean, these are strange times, particularly for Africa, and in this instance, in the northern part of, Africa, the Gulf area. Morocco and Libya on everybody's minds. And for Libya in particular, it's a cry for help and for assistance. More than 11,000 people dead already, confirmed dead. WHO is saying that another equal number, almost 11,000, are missing. And nobody is sure what has become of those people. It's an emergency that is almost unprecedented, for a country, like Libya. The Moroccan earthquake is also, very devastating. 3,000 dead so far.
And counting.
And counting. What is Africa saying? Yes, all these countries, these two countries are asking for assistance, they're asking for help. For Libya, both are indicative of climate change crisis. Both are indicative of, to an extent, a lack of proper planning, especially in the case of Libya, the collapsed dam. But more importantly about climate change, the type of rain, the flooding that came after, in 24 hours, the type of rain that Libya witnessed is the type that you will have in an entire year. The lesson, therefore, for me, is not just for Libya or for Morocco alone, but for the entire Africa, for the entire, developing countries of the world, who, if you are faced with this type of, challenges, how are you going to cope with it?
Definitely. And when you look at the full scale of the disaster so far, a lot of international agencies or news reporters have been saying that it might even be more than what's being currently reported. When we focus to Libya, for example, there's an area that is not controlled by the government of Tripoli, but is actually controlled by a rival warlord, and they've not been able to reach those areas. We look at Libya as a failed or semi-failed state that has been caught up in this protracted war since 2011, which has had a massive impact already on the infrastructure. So with this flood now, 11,000 people dead, 30,000 people missing. It's really worrying. And of course, there's been a lot of foreign aid and, foreign help being poured into that country. But when I turn my attention to Morocco, I think it's interesting to mention that Morocco in itself has been criticized for accepting only a few offers to help. Earlier this week, there was an offer of help extended by Algeria. And, of course, there's been a very interesting relationship between the two countries. But regardless, they've shown an outpouring of support despite the diplomatic chill between the two countries. But initially, they had refused aid. But I think the criticism just kind of let go, because at this point, you have to swallow your pride and get as much help as you can. But really and truly, my heart goes out to the people of Morocco and Libya. We look at it, it's been almost a week of, people being rescued, people still searching for survivors. The worst destruction that has been in the isolated mountain areas, and they have not been able to get across to these people. Imagine not being able to go back to your home and sleeping outside because of fear of the aftershocks of this earthquake. But of course, we'll continue to monitor this story and see exactly what happened. Our Rise chief correspondent, John Cookson, was down in Morocco earlier this week, and he has been keeping us up to date.
Great.
But now let's turn our attention to the demise of Afrobeat singer Mohbad, the fast-rising star who passed away on Tuesday, September 12, at the age of 27. The singer's death has been shrouded in controversy, as many of his fans have alleged a threat to his life prior to his death and suspected foul play resulting to his death. On Wednesday, an old video surfaced on social media showing the singer being chased away from a music video shoot. In the footage, music promoter Sam Larry had some men visited the scene of the shoot and demanded that Mohbad be sent out. A petition said to be filed by the late singer against the promoter, alleging threats to his life and damage of property, has since surfaced on social media. In the petition dated June 27, 2023, Mohbad stated that about 15 persons led by Sam Larry invaded the premises with guns and cutlasses to assault him, adding that during the assault, the men were boasting that they work for Oba Elegushi and they have been asked to deal with him. However, in a statement on Thursday, the Palace of Elegushi disowned the music promoter, stating that he is not a member of the royal family and called on the police to thoroughly investigate the case. And the Nigerian police, in a tweet on X, said they would launch a comprehensive investigation into the singer's death. Now, this has been a very, the story started off with, of course, the news of Mohbad passing away, and since Tuesday, it's just been one thing after the other. However, three things stand out to me regarding this story. I think first is the fact that we're seeing all of this activity now that Mohbad has passed away. Yeah. We saw clearly that a petition was filed just less than 2 or 3 months ago in June, where he went to the police and said, you see, I am in fear of my life. I'm sure you must have seen a lot of the videos on social media where he recorded himself after the attack, in so many, like even the video that we just saw where he was on the set of a video shoot with Zlatan, and he was attacked by this individual called Sam Larry, who is closely related to Naira Marley, the record label that he was signed under. Now, just this morning, I was watching a video that Sam Larry had put out to say that, Mohbad is his brother and, he loves him, brothers fight or whatever. But there is a petition that was filed to the police saying that he was afraid for his life. Why wasn't any investigation carried out then? Why is it now that he has passed away that we're now seeing this, medicine after death, where it's like, oh, we're going to look into the investigation? I remember about 2 months ago, he had gone on live crying and saying that he was afraid for his life. And now here now we're seeing that he has passed away. Secondly, for me is this thing about musicians and the contracts that they sign. Everything is still being alleged. People are alleging that it's the intimidation, it's the bullying. It came about as a result of them not being able to agree on some clause in the contract or whatever it is.
Well, he has left the recording label. He has left the recording
exactly.
label.
So when we look at these things, when whatever it is, when you're signing as an artist or as a musician, it's always very important to look at the fine print, to look at everything in there to make sure that what you're signing you're not signing off, your lifetime achievements, your money, or even your peace of mind. Now, there's going to be a thorough investigation, I believe, that's going to be done by the police to make sure that they find out exactly what happened. I find it very strange that he passed away on Tuesday, and less than 24 or 48 hours after he was buried and his grave had already been cemented. If there was already a pending petition, I would believe that his family members or his loved ones or even the police should ask for his body so that an autopsy is carried out to find out exactly what happened to him. There's been so many speculations, an ear infection, he was hypertensive, he was beaten to death. Whatever the reason is, only an autopsy can properly reveal the reason behind his death. And thirdly, there have also been reports about his wife, or I'm not sure if it's his wife or his girlfriend, who has a 5-month-old baby for him, whose family members have come out to say that she's been threatened. There's been this push for his properties or money or whatever it is that is going to be taken away from her. This is 2023. This woman is still grieving the loss of her husband, of her boyfriend, of the father of her child. I can't believe that in 2023 we're still having people that his body is not even in the ground up to a week and you're already fighting for his property. There are NGOs that look into these kind of situations, and I call on these NGOs to also investigate and make sure that this woman and her 5-month-old son don't become another statistic when it comes to how widows are treated after their husbands pass away. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, I mean, Shaitan, you've said quite deep things, all the three pillars that you based your thoughts on are very germane, very valid. What is important is that we mourn this young man, just as 27, Ilerioluwa Oladimeji Aloba, Imole, many of his peers called him, but of course Mohbad, he called himself. It's a pity that he was hounded to death. Clearly, he was hounded to death. We do not know, as at now, what's the actual cause for his death, but we know what he went through, we know what he passed through, we know the unsavory things that he had to endure up till the time that he gave up the ghost. The law in Lagos State is that every death, ideally, must go through a post-mortem. We do not know whether it is as a result of a religious inclination that caused the body of Mohbad to be interred almost immediately, within 24 hours. But that's a family matter. But thankfully, we're glad that the police is saying that even if the investigation requires exhuming the body, they will go, up till that point. Let's hope that the police can walk their talk, because, like you said, since June, Mohbad has been crying and even, detailed all that he was going through a petition to them to say that my life is under danger, my life is under threat, and there are video evidence, there are, copious evidences to show that a few supposedly powerful guys were after him. They are known. The least that the police can do is to at least invite them and investigate. And I like the fact that the palace of Elegushi has distanced himself from the fellow called Sam Larry. Sam Larry is said to it, that's what they say about him, because many of the artists sing about him. But then if there are thoughts around how you conduct yourself, your life, your businesses, it is important that if things are not right and you are found wanting in certain areas of the law must take its due course. I've listened to a number of videos, I've watched a number of videos by this gentleman, and I do not think that, that's the proper way to conduct yourself, even as a music promoter. But hey, it's entertainment business. We'll see how things can go hurry in some instances, but where life of a budding artist, a budding star is involved, the police must not keep quiet. And I like the fact that, the fans of Mohbad are speaking out on Twitter, speaking out on social media to say that justice is demanded and that justice must be done. One other thing that we must not also ignore in all matters, I appreciate what you said about the fact about, knowing what you're signing when you are going into. It happens all over the world, especially when young artists are desperate for stardom. But what is important that we must not ignore is the heavy infusion of drugs in the music and entertainment business. Many of those who call themselves promoters today, are basically trading, in illicit, drugs and using many of our young stars, to get these things done. Those are larger areas of concern that the police, and the public must also be aware of. How depressed was Mohbad before he finally passed on? What will happen to his girlfriend or his wife or baby mama, as they say, and the 5-month, old child? So many questions begging for answers, and I think that the police will do well to look into this case, particularly when accusing fingers are pointing in certain directions. It shouldn't matter that, we see you in pictures with royalty, with governors, with people in authority. If you have run foul of the law, I think that the law must descend on you heavily. Yes. All right, we proceed. The president of the Spanish Football Federation, Luis Rubiales, has resigned following weeks of controversy after he forcibly kissed the player after the Women's World Cup final in Australia. Spain's star player, Jenny Hermoso, did not consent to the case and has filed a legal complaint against Mr. Rubiales. He claims it was consensual. The 46-year-old has also resigned from his position as vice president of UEFA's executive committee. The fallout from the kiss has engulfed Spanish football in recent weeks and overshadowed Spain's World Cup win, with Rubiales ignoring repeated calls to resign. Rubiales said he had submitted his resignation to Federation Acting President Pedro Rocha, in a statement. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, I remember that before I went on my short break,
yes.
we discussed this matter, but here we are, still discussing Rubiales. Is finally out now. He has resigned. But one thing I find very interesting is the extent to which it is going. The entire ladies in the Spanish, football team, almost all of them, with the exception of about two, basically saying that it is not just about Rubiales resigning and everything, but that a holistic review of how the business of female soccer in Spain is conducted must be carried out. And they are insistent, they are very intentional about what they're asking. They're in court now. Our court has granted that he must not be seen.
Yes, a restraining order.
Restraining order. About 200 meters, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it was 500 meters that was demanded for, including taking over, I believe, of some of his property and everything, but the court only granted 200 meters. I think that this is a lesson for people in power. On the surface, what many people saw on that day, when everybody was carried away by the fact that, particularly for Nigerians, because Spain basically defeated for us those who sent us, the English team out of the World Cup. But it turned out that, something that you would have thought was just a momentary, display of affection, has now gone, to this level, where even the lady is saying that, no, I never consented, and I feel violated, and that this is, as a matter of fact, is an assault. The gentleman is saying that, no, I didn't do anything wrong, and is claiming that he never put any pressure on the soccer player to side with him. This is a lesson for everybody, particularly for men.
Yes.
For men, so that you can always put yourself in check. Could it have happened to anybody, especially in that type of society? What will you describe as, overstepping your bounds? But here we are, if it, how do you even define consent in that instance? Those are the lessons that a lot of people, will have to learn. The takeaways for me is that always put yourself in check.
Definitely.
If you're in a position of authority.
I mean, like you said, Spain's High Court has imposed a restraining order to prevent the former football chief, Luis Rubiales, from approaching the national team player Jenny Hermoso as he appeared in court to be investigated for this sexual assault of kissing her on the lips. You see, I remember when we were talking about it, I said, there's no excuse. She's not your wife, she's not your child, she's not your niece, you are not even... you are her coach, so you have no. Even if you want to even kiss her on the cheeks, why are you? He was
not even the coach. He was just the football chief.
The football chief. Why are you kissing her on the lips? It just comes off as wrong, and it just reminds me of this video that was trending this week, where a journalist was on air and she was talking on air, and a man walked up to her while she was on air and smacked her on her behind. He's actually been arrested. I forget. I think it was in an European country, and it just speaks to the lines that men and even sometimes women cross. We need to be very careful in how we address these things. I honestly feel like if this Chief Rubiales had come out immediately and apologized for his actions and said, you know what, I thought it was consensual, but I now realize that it wasn't. I'm sorry. And maybe I had gone on a suspension, this thing would have died down. But the reason why I think it has been dragged on for so long was that he kept insisting it was consensual. He kept insisting that he was not going to resign. And you see, you cannot fight an uphill battle. The evidence is there. The woman had gone up immediately to say, I didn't want this. I did not want this at all. So at the end of the day, we're seeing that you didn't necessarily win this. He has to resign. And now he has a restraining order filed against him. So like you said, Mr. Steve, men and women, learn to keep yourself in check.